everybody. I didn't expect quite a turnout, so welcome and thanks so much for joining us here. Today we're going to be talking about brave parents, calm children. Helping your children grow through challenge and not avoid it. Alright, so before we dive in, just a quick confession. I'm certainly no expert at raising children, okay? You can ask me about that. And if I had all the answers, I wouldn't need coffee, I wouldn't need Google, I wouldn't need chat, I wouldn't need a glass of wine or three. But all I want to say is this workshop is not about fixing your child. It's not about creating a sense of emotional regulation where they're always in control. It's about how we as parents can step back just enough for our children to step up. Okay? And how we can support our children through the mess, but not necessarily clean up the mess for them. And also, how that we can build resilience without bubble wrapping our children. Okay, so, sorry, wrong way. Okay, so we're going to start off by discussing the myth of a happy childhood. All right, so I need a little bit of parental involvement here, so I want to hear from your side. What does good parenting mean? Okay, not all at once. What does it mean to be a good parent?
Being intentional maybe about the choices you make.
Being intentional. Good. What else?
Being present.
Being present.
Setting boundaries.
Setting boundaries. Okay, something I'm also not very good at. Yeah. Consistency.
Listening.
Being supportive.
Listening.
Okay. That's exactly it. But the whole myth of a happy childhood is the myth of saying, like, children constantly need to be happy, stress-free, all of that kind of stuff. And I think so often as parents, we try and make sure that our children live this myth of a happy childhood, that they actually don't go through childhood feeling kind of, feelings of challenge. And as Jonathan Haidt said, and I'm quoting him now, a childhood without setbacks doesn't prepare children for adulthood. And I think that is something that I just want to highlight there, is that childhood has to have setbacks. Us as parents don't like to see our children in a state of discomfort, but it is absolutely necessary if we want to be able to prepare our child for adulthood one day. So, the question I want you to ask yourselves consistently is, are we helping our children grow, or are we helping them keep comfortable and stay comfortable? Okay, so, right. What we need to do now is, we need to kind of look at the way we think about parenting. If we think about parenting, our natural instinct is the reflex, the rescue reflex, okay? Which is our urge to step up. As soon as we see them in hardship, we tend to overprotect, we tend to want to help them, we want to soothe, we want to fix, we want to make it better. And that is, in essence, what we want to try and do as parents. But children learn by doing and not by watching us. So if we are going to step in and try and rescue our children all the time, they are going to see us doing it for them and not by them doing it themselves. So they're not going to learn by us having this rescue reflex all the time. So this overprotection that many of us, we are often overprotective, and I think it comes from the generation that we live in too. And Jonathan Haidt in his book, I don't know if any of you have read The Anxious Generation. A lot of us also refer to it as the fragile generation too. So Jonathan Haidt's book is absolutely fantastic, called The Anxious Generation, and really, if you haven't read it, it is a really good must read. And one of the things he talks about in his book quite prominently is overprotection in the real world. The current situation in the world right now is overprotection in the real world and underprotection online. Okay, So we're all there, ready to sort out problems for our children, fix things for our children, do things for our children, but then happily hand them a smartphone where it's actually so underprotected, they are so underprotected and exposed to so much more. So what we need to look at doing is underprotecting in the real world and overprotecting in the online realm. So overprotection leads to things like increased anxiety, fragile children, hindered independence, and eroded grit, which I'll discuss in a little bit more detail now. But in essence, overprotection, or overprotecting our children, gets the message across to our children that us as parents, if we intervene too soon, we're basically saying, like, you can't handle this, let me do it for you because you're not capable. So the message that we're getting across to our children is one of incapability. You can't do it. I'm going to step in before you fail or before you hurt yourself or things like that. So this is why it leads to that sense of increased anxiety, okay? Because the children don't build the coping skills, okay? We all know that anxiety is a very natural and normal part of growth. It's a natural and normal part of development, and actually it is a survival mechanism. We need certain elements of levels of anxiety in order to be able to thrive. So Jonathan Haidt, once again, I am going to refer to him a lot because it's something that I really respect and look up to at the moment. So he talks about how overprotectiveness has, in parenting, is a major rising factor in youth anxiety in general. So kids aren't getting enough opportunity to build their emotional strength through real life experiences. It's very scary to be religious at the moment. And I know, it doesn't really scare me because I know I'll never be out of work. But like, we look at the rates of anxiety and depression in adolescents have doubled since 2010. And I know we tend to overuse that term anxiety, and I think as parents I also want to make you conscious about that. I'm guilty for it as well, but we tend to always say, oh, I'm feeling so anxious, I'm feeling so this, and we actually over-pathologize a situation that is normal, you know. By saying, oh, I'm so anxious, I can't do this, or are you feeling anxious about the school play? We're trying to tell our children it's not normal to feel that feeling, when actually anxiety is a mental disorder, it's a mental health disorder, and it's pathology. It's somebody who's got extreme anxiety that debilitates them in their day-to-day functioning. It's not about somebody who has an increased sense of anxiety, or all of us have increased anxiety when we need to perform, or when we need to do something. And we need to be in that state of anxiety. But anxiety isn't a bad thing. So we need to dispel that myth and try to use different words with our children. Change your language in terms of saying things like, I know you might be feeling a little bit nervous for the test, or it's normal to have butterflies in your feeling, but not to over-pathologize that word anxiety. So if we look at that research, so that same research that's showing that anxiety and depression has doubled since 2010, it also shows us that since 2010, the amount of opportunities that children have to play independently outside, to make decisions for themselves, all of those opportunities have sharply declined. And you can imagine, if you think about it, it's always like, oh, don't go there, or oh, come stand with me at the shop, or don't, come closer, or whatever. We tend to make decisions for our children, and so them not being able to have that independent play and that decision making has increased the levels of anxiety. So fragile children is another one. Like I said, a lot of us talk about the fragile generation that we're living in now. So fragile children often look like they're well behaved, they look like they're in control, but they struggle to tolerate disappointment. Okay? They struggle to tolerate disappointment, failure, criticism. So they lack of what we call emotional calluses, like the little bumps and bruises that help develop tolerance for stress. So if we can think of an example here, grade 6 writes their first set of exams or writes a test and they fail or get a few marks wrong, and then they immediately over-dramatize and say, oh, I'm so stupid, I always get something wrong, I'm so silly. And what you often find is that spiral down in self-criticism or tears, and it's not because it's an Oscar-winning performance, it's because they have had little practice tolerating imperfection or bouncing back from small setbacks. And we as parents don't often allow our children to have those imperfections or to have those situations of struggle. So then they become emotionally fragile. Hindered independence, okay, so this is us obviously wanting to do a lot of things for our children, and in doing this, indirectly we're giving them the message that you actually can't do this without me, okay? Mistakes are dangerous. Careful of the wording that you're using. You are not capable. So by doing things for our children, it often slows their development and delays their maturity. If you think about us as children, I know it was a hell of a long time ago, but think of our level of independence then compared to the level of independence that our children have now. I don't know about you, but I certainly feel like my folks can do as much for me as I do for my girls. And grit. Okay, eroded grit is another impact of overprotection. And I think grit is something that, the reason why we all choose to send our kids to Clifton is because that is certainly something that we try and instill in our children. Is grit is all about building through experiences. So repeated experiences, trying, failing, might fail again, might try again, trying, failing, trying, but eventually succeeding, okay? But success isn't always that definition of success that we know. Success doesn't mean you're going to try, you're going to fail, you're going to try, you're going to fail, now suddenly, you failed a maths test, you're suddenly going to get 90%. No, success is different for everyone. But it means that you need to have that grit and resilience to push through. But what we're finding with overprotection is that we are too willing to take our children out of stressful situations so that they don't try, or they'll try but give up so easily. So we need to know that building confidence and instilling that confidence in our children, it requires exposure and not avoidance. And that's exactly what I was saying, is we need to help our children work through their problems and not avoid them or go around them. So it's consistently those little manageable challenges that are going to build resistance. So if you look here, there's this analogy that actually explains what I'm trying to say. It's once again in Jonathan Haidt's book. By the end of the talk, you guys won't have to read it, but it's really a good book. But how he compares, it's a brilliant metaphor that he uses to compare how children grow strong emotionally and physiologically. So here are two trees, okay? Two identical trees planted in different circumstances. One is out in the open, exposed to all the different elements, and one is in a protected greenhouse. All right. So protected from all the winds, trying to give it ideal living conditions. But if you look at ourselves, which one becomes stronger? We look at the actual pictures of the tree, we can see that the roots of the one outside, exposed to the elements, has stronger roots, more deepened roots, and a thicker branch when compared to the one in a protected greenhouse. So that one in the greenhouse might look fine until it gets the first gust of wind and it falls over. Exactly as what happens with our children in life. So the wind, in essence, is the little shortfalls, the things that don't harm our children but make them stronger. So I know from having married an apple farmer, like your trees, the more resistance they have to the elements, the stronger they are for kids. But there will be times, obviously, like last year when we had the tornado, where too much is also not a good thing. Okay? So you need to find that balance between exposing your children to some sort of resilience and also not overexposing them, but being side by side with them to be able to confidently help them through the challenges. So we need to let the wind blow a little for our kids. We need to not put them in a greenhouse where they're going to be overprotected. And we need them to walk with the challenge, not just swoop in and take away the challenge. We need to let them feel nervous and still go forward. It's okay. We need to give them that confidence to do that. We need them to forget their tennis racket at home once and then get into trouble, or more like their English book maybe with Mr. Quinn, and then get into trouble and then they'll forget to do it again. But we need them to mess up a little bit. And we need to be a safe and secure environment to be able to help them grow through their mess-ups. So, a tree, like Kate says, the tree doesn't grow strong by being sheltered from the wind. It grows strong because of the wind. Okay. So, why? Once again, this is a time for you guys to step up. Why do you think we tend to jump in and step in and tend to overprotect our children at times? Why do you think we do it?
Because we want them to do it.
Because we don't want them to hurt, absolutely.
And it's easier on us to quickly step in than have to deal with the fallout.
Absolutely.
On
Because
us.
we can see what might happen, eh? And we can see the fallout might happen, but the impact is more likely to affect us, like you said, Kirst. Eh?
Yeah.
Okay, so the impact might affect us. What else?
Sometimes also I think just an skewed version of what we think being a good parent is. So like just thinking, oh, if we're not the mom who is arriving with the tennis racket, we are not being a good mom. So not sometimes less about the child, more about how we feel about ourselves.
100%. That's certainly one of our answers here. Well done. 10 out of 10.
Lazy parenting, like our lives are busy and so then often it's a laziness too sometimes.
100%. 100% is that sometimes it's just so much easier. Little Johnny at grade 1 hasn't learned how to tie his shoelaces, so what will you do? Tie them for him because you're in a rush and you need to get out the door. He doesn't know how to tie his shoelaces, so you'll step in and do it for him. So it's often because we're in a rush. It's often because we're scared of being judged by other parents. Okay, well, I'm not going to be the one, and Shane, and is going to be the only one who arrives to help without a sister. Make that, often because we're scared of the failure, the repercussions that might come. So instead of, if we just deal with a small situation now, it might prevent me having to then sit with my child for 45 minutes to handle the meltdown and this and that. So it's also sometimes because of our schedule that we need to do it. And also because we don't like to see our children hurt. And obviously, I'm not saying you're going to sit there and watch your child in an extreme situation. What I'm saying is, as soon as there are the soft, gentle winds, we need to allow our children to be able to push through. Okay, so this term anti-fragile, has anybody heard about anti-fragile, anti-fragility? It's a term that was coined by Nassim, what is his name? Nassim Taleb, I think. He was a Lebanese-American scholar. Okay, so he coined the term anti-fragile. So if we look at it, fragile means something breaks under stress. And resilient means that something survives in stress. Okay, so fragile means they'll break under stress. Resilient means they survive through stress, but not necessarily thrive. Anti-fragility means that you grow stronger through challenge. Okay, so that you're not anti-fragile. So you're not going to break, but you are not going to just survive. So you're actually going to grow and learn through stress. So he coined the term anti-fragility, and he said, children are not anti-fragile. It's quite a pertinent thing, don't you think? Is that they're going to grow strong through the challenge, they're going to learn through the challenges, but they also need to realize that they are not fragile, that they are anti-fragile, and that what through the challenges that they are going to grow that much stronger. Yeah, so our aim is obviously there to raise children who are not only safe but strong. So children who fall but learn to get back up. Children who know that they're capable and know that they're resilient. And like I said, it's that message that we get across to our children. By being overprotective, by doing things for them, we're giving them that message that actually I'm not capable. But I think our children are more capable than we think. I don't know if any of you, or often when you send your children to go and stay with other friends' families, or go have sleepovers or go to parties, or you hear comments from school where they're always like, your child is so polite, so well behaved, so all of that, and you often see the wrath of your child. It's all about that. If you as a parent step back, you often find the children step up. And I think that's what we need to realize, is that our children are more capable than we think. Okay. All right. So anxiety. If we look here. So if we look here at this anxiety curve, all right? Trigger of anxiety, thoughts, feelings, height of anxiety, becoming common, normal feelings. Okay? So if we look at something new, all right, it's going to trigger anxiety, it's going to trigger thoughts and emotions around them. Okay? So anything, from doing a maths test, from going to a sleepover, from going to a school trip, from, I don't know, what are other things that cause your children anxiety or stress? Sports matches, not making a team, socializing, coming to school and is somebody going to play with me? All of these are triggers of anxiety that manifest in different thoughts and different feelings, and then reach a peak, okay, the top, the height of anxiety. And this is the point where, the crucial point, if we step in here, our children never get to that part of the curve. Okay. So if we step in at the height of anxiety and we tell our children, it's okay, you don't need to do it, I'll help you through it. Oh, no, not I'll help you through it, because that is what you need to do. I'll do it for you. You're never going to teach the children in that challenge that it is going to pass. And you're never going to teach the children, like, it's normal to feel anxious, it's normal to feel those feelings, but we need to avoid the intensity and the avoidance behavior that comes with increased levels of anxiety. So, if a child goes through this normal curve, we intervene in a very nurturing way, but we don't take over. And our children go through this, become calmer, normalize their feelings, deal with whatever the situation is, through encouragement and support. So they've gone through the whole entire challenge. They will learn that discomfort passes. And that is a very strong message that we need to get through to our children, is you are going to always be in a situation of discomfort, but it does pass. We need to tell them anxiety is not the enemy. And we'll see in life, the curves often dip and flow and dip and flow. So when I say we're going to support our children through it, it doesn't mean we're going to take away that anxiety for them. It just means that we're going to help and support them through their anxiety. So basically, when we think of anxiety, we need to think of it as a signal. Not to stop, but more as a signal to how are we going to stretch? What can be the learning outcomes? How can we move forward from here? So that anxiety doesn't become debilitating, but more enabling. Any questions?
So what does it look like practically? Let's say,
Okay.
in the maths test.
Pardon me?
What does it look like? Just practical steps for taking all the things about an exam or a test. What do you do?
Okay. So there's a whole lot of things that you could do, and I'm not coming with a one-size-fits-all approach here, absolutely. But say, for example, somebody's, your child's coming up, they've got a maths test coming up, and you've got to normalize those feelings. Say it's normal to feel those feelings. You've got to prepare well, You've got to tell them that the outcome of the situation isn't the be-all and end-all. You've got to tell them that you're going to do everything to control the situation that you can. You can't control the test, but you can control how you prepare for it. So you can tell them, you can send them to extra lessons if they need help. You can go through the maths with them, and you can do everything like that to walk alongside them.
And do you say all of those things at the height of anxiety?
No, it's not. It depends. It depends at what stage. But yes, at the height of anxiety is generally when things kind of go exponential, and that's when our reaction often becomes reactive. And our reaction, so our role as parents is to stay calm. And if we in that situation and there's a heightened sense of anxiety and we're at the top of the curve, you probably find that our reactions become a lot more emotive. So to try and prevent the situation from getting there and to guide them through it is ideally what you want to do, but it doesn't always happen. And I think that's the logic of the situation, and that's the logic of the world, is they'll probably only come to you when it's like the maths test tomorrow. And then it is to just calm feelings, validate emotions, and talk about the next time. You know what I'm saying? Is everything is a learning curve. So if it's a heightened sense of emotion that is, kind of at the top and uncontrollable, and there's nothing you can do for tomorrow, normalize that. There's nothing we can do now, but we can move forward from there. Okay. Any other examples? Yes.
Well, not an example, I don't know if sort of. But as a parent, if you're anxious yourself, you know what I mean? What else would you do? To take an example for the test that's coming up. Yourself as a parent, you find that you're also just going through that yourself. And how then do you determine when to step back and be a parent and just to try and avoid the type of situation?
Sure. Luckily, none of us experience that. So, no, that's really hard. And so thanks so much for raising that point, because I think it's a very, very, very important point, because our children pick up on our anxieties, and we role model, they model our behavior. Okay, so sometimes it is, so if we are dysregulated as adults, they'll be dysregulated as children. Okay, so we need to learn actively how to manage our own anxieties, because if we don't manage our own anxieties, we are certainly going to transfer them onto the children. So in a situation, would you say, give me a specific example. So your child's writing a test, you feel anxious about.
Are they going to make it? Did I prepare them well enough? It's
Yeah.
not a tough thing.
Yeah. So your anxiety around that is obviously going to be, it's going to create the narrative and the story around how you're going to do it. Okay, so to manage your anxiety yourself, you can also only control the controllables. You can also only do so much that you can do. And you've got to realize that it's them, and you are walking beside them, not in front of them, okay, not like your lawnmower parents, to pave the way for them. You're walking beside them, okay? So you need to do everything to try and help them help themselves. All you needing to move is to have them, all you needing to want to do is to move alongside them, to take away that sense of I'm doing it for them, to independently enable them to do it. So yes, you need to manage your anxiety by making sure that they've got the content, but in a way that you're not putting pressure on them, because so often that can happen too, is that you put pressure on them. Okay, you need to have conversations with them about things like productive struggle. It's necessary. Struggle is necessary.
And mistakes are okay, no?
Yeah, so you need to normalize things. It's
As long as you
okay.
learn and grow
It's
from
okay.
it.
But I think in terms of that is always to keep things realistic, to look at their goals and to goal set with them, but also not to be unrealistic about it. Okay.
Just a little comment on that, just to say from my own personal experience, I battle with anxiety myself. So if I'm in a situation with my children and I feel like I don't know what to help and I'm feeling anxious and they're now worried, I have found the older my children get, and this is very new learning for me, but the more I just support and encourage, don't have to fix it, don't have to, just support and encourage the situation as opposed to trying to fix it or do something about it. Sometimes there is nothing to do. And it's just to support and encourage them as opposed to, because sometimes you coming from an empty well. Like, I'm anxious, I'm empty, I don't know what to do here. Instead of rise into it, just support and encourage as opposed to trying to fix it. Sometimes they just need us to just be there alongside. And we have to sometimes do anything about it.
Absolutely, absolutely. B? Oh, okay.
Sorry, I have a question.
Yes, yeah.
Maybe a lot of parents' anxiety, maybe it's also, I've got older children, but sort of trying to have the balance of showing them what's out there in the real world, and maybe it's what's age appropriate. And I think a lot of parents have this anxiety about, you know, how tough it is out there, but yet, you know, needing to get good marks to get into university. So I think it's maybe something that's underlying with parents to push their children to get into schools, and then it's to get into university. It's that constant sort of, wanting to balance that with them having, you know, a childhood, certainly in junior school, where they can still sort of expand and grow without having to worry about, you know, the pressures
Like
out
maybe
there.
giving them a little bit of anxiety sometimes.
They have a false sense of security. I suppose it's grappling with that balance of preparing them for what's out there, but not killing their sort of spirit or confidence.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think a lot comes with your natural development. You know what I'm saying is, on a primary school level, the sense of what they need to be responsible for compared to in a high school level when you are getting into university, you do need to write your trick and do all of those kinds of things. I'm talking about stresses on your day-to-day basis. You know what I'm saying is, they will get exposed to, you know, getting left out, failing a test, I'm trying to think about not making a sports team, all of those kinds of things on a kind of a developmental level until they're kind of 13 years old. Those are all anxieties and things that they're exposed to. But all of those are cornerstones of forming a kind of sense of self that can cope with bigger problems later on. I'm not saying step back and not create that sense of urgency, you need to do it, you need to take responsibility, you need to create all of that for them. But I'm just saying is that you can't do it for them, you need to walk alongside them to do that. It's all about creating that independence in them from an early age so that hopefully they can do it themselves later on. I don't think that really answered what you were trying to say. In essence, where we're at.
You mentioned being 13 years old. Are you saying this then normalizes it?
No. I'm saying, I'm 43 what I'm saying is, on a primary school level, in terms of the amount of pressure and stress that you're going to put on your children on a primary school level compared to on a high school level, you still need to. I mean, they need to stand up. Like, they need to step up. You need to pass. And you need to try your best, Your best might be totally different. I'm not saying never discourage that. I'm saying is the way you're going to do it is more in a coaching way, and the way that you're going to do it is enabling them and giving them the strength to feel like, I can do this myself, I can do it. And I'm saying is, if they need to do a school project and you step in and you do the project for them, that's not teaching them. That's you walking in, you enabling them, you letting them, you do the school project, but they're not learning from it. So that's what I'm saying is, I mean, obviously the level of, Lee? Obviously that level of responsibility. He forgot his racket, right? Let's all watch and see what Okay, so I'm saying is already that degree of responsibility as you get older. So I'm kind of talking on a primary school level. I'm saying is as you get older, your degree of responsibility gets more according to your developmental ages and stages and your maturation. That's what happens there. Okay, so why discomfort matters? So this is what I'm saying, is our kids need to be in these states of discomfort. They need to realize what it feels like to be left out of a party. They need to feel what it realizes to not make a sports team that they want to be in. They need to realize what it means to fail a test. Actually, they didn't put in any effort. They need to feel these feelings of discomfort in order to grow. And this is where I think as parents, we try and take away this discomfort and we limit that growth, okay? So if we look at this diagram, all right, the comfort zone is where kids feel safe, feel easy, familiar, it's very much rest, regulated, all, everything fine, but no growth happens in the comfort zone. And you find that this is when children often get bored or get stagnated. And I think that's one thing that we're very guilty of as parents, is making sure our children aren't bored. We fill up their diaries, we fill up their weekends, we make plans instead of allowing them to just be. So in order for growth to happen, they need to move out of the comfort zone and into the fear zone. Okay? This is when they start to feel anxious, a little bit uneasy, and I stop right there. Leon, you just need to go to the tennis racket.
Just take 2 ministers and drugs.
I know you can take it. Okay, so this is when they get into the fear zone, is often, so obviously our ultimate goal is for them to get to the growth zone, okay? So to go through the learning zone to the growth zone. But often in the fear zone, this is where us as parents, if we are being overprotective, we tend to then step in and then skip the learning zone, and they don't really grow and learn from the experience as much as they should. Okay, so sometimes you can reach a little bit of a panic zone. So this is when you don't step in to help alongside. But what you need to encourage is a child to move from their comfort zone to the fear zone. And it's in those situations where they're in that feeling of discomfort that they will learn. And then through that, they'll grow. So that's ultimately what you're wanting in terms of why you want to leave your children in this feeling of discomfort. We don't like to see it. We don't like to see our children hurting. It's taking a huge amount of time, but this is where your resilience will grow, is if they're feeling that feeling of discomfort, moving through the fear zone, learning zone, and then they'll grow. Facing challenges. So this is some neuroscience that I was reading about in terms of your facing challenges builds neurological pathways for coping and self-regulation. So I'm not just saying it for little Johnny to be a happy, well-regulated child. I'm trying to say putting them in a situation of fear, putting them in a situation of growth, not by themselves. I'm not saying that you're going to leave them there by themselves, but you're putting them in that situation. It is actually going to create neurological pathways in the brain that are going to help with coping and self-regulation. So, like a child falling off the bike, are you never going to let go of the seat? Are they never going to learn? Or a child with a voice who, needs to speak or needs to speak out loud in class. You can practice these skills at home. So, that's it there. Right. So these are just some examples of everyday discomforts, okay? And I think I thought I'd chat through a few. Because what happens is when our children are in an example or in an everyday discomfort, for example, left out a party, or not invited to a party, we as parents, our normal response would be to blame others, to try and compensate, to take them to the movies or do something else, to try and make the situation better for them, okay? But don't miss out on that growth opportunity in a situation like that, okay? Exclusion, it's a part of life. We don't like to be excluded. Our children don't like to be excluded. It's going to happen, whether you like it or not, all right? But always make sure that there is a growth opportunity that comes out of it. So by doing the hard things with just enough support is going to allow them to become more able to manage and cope with their stress. Okay, so a friendship conflict. easy for you to phone the parents and get involved, or phone the school and say there's conflict with my friend's peers are leaving her out. But what are you teaching your child? You're not always going to be there. You're not always going to be there in those situations to put the fires out for your children, to handle them. You need to teach them and be alongside them. How? How are you going to talk through the situation? Okay, so this is what happened at school today. Okay, yeah, so you felt left out. All right, let's look at every aspect of this. Okay, what part did you have to play? And use it to understand that conflict resolution, to work through it. Okay, so there you're going through the learning zone so that they grow ultimately. Struggles with a project, forgetting the homework, parent brings it to school. Forgetting a tennis racket, parent brings it to school. So you're not learning that responsibility, learning the natural consequences. Well, I'm going to get into trouble for not doing that. I have to man up. I have to face the consequences of those things. So often, nervous to try something new. Everybody's nervous to try something new. So let's make an excuse, or let's contact the teachers and say, you know what, my child is very nervous and doesn't want to do swimming practice today. Please can you excuse him from swimming? Well, you're discovering your missed opportunity there is you're not allowing them to push through and discover that actually I have the confidence, I actually do have the courage, I can actually do it. So I don't think I'll discuss those any more in detail. I'm running out of time. Okay. So, the bravery muscle. Okay, so this is what we need to do to kind of foster this growth and development in our children, is to build the bravery muscle. What we find is children, so literally that, building courage, it grows like muscles. So a lot of our children have our anxious predispositions, or a lot of our children's personality types are different to others. Some are more outgoing, some are more introverted. Some children have a bigger sense of, a lot more courageous than other children. But we need to know that courage grows like a muscle. So the more you are going to strengthen it, the more you are going to expose your children to regular age-appropriate activities, the better the muscle is going to develop. Okay, so the goal is not to avoid fear, but it is to try and make our children face their fears, face their struggles with enough confidence and support so that real growth happens. So what you find is children tend to choose the easy option. Okay? Why? Because it's requires less effort. It's much easier to do. It makes them look clever. They get parental recognition. I think often as parents we tend to choose the easy option too. Yeah. But it doesn't mean so they'll avoid tasks that will involve struggle, that will carry out risks. But what it means is that they won't grow from them. So you need to make challenges more appealing. More appealing by being there, supporting them, helping them through it. And it doesn't, like I say, necessarily mean something huge, but it means something small. It's sometimes when I work with kids in therapy, I talk about a bravery ladder, where it's small steps that you're doing consistently, and it's all personal. So you're not comparing yourself or your child to another child. It's all what stretches them. What do they need to do? Somebody might get 100% for maths, so it's certainly not going to be a challenge for them to write a maths exam. But somebody else who fails maths, it will be a challenge for them to pass a maths exam. And obviously different things for different children. Okay, any questions or comments at this stage?
So you can't incentivize.
Pardon? You can incentivize. You can incentivize. Why?
Right.
That's the other way. Call it what it is.
Yeah, so Gary, in this, I'm all about how we're going to reframe our talking to our children. So we're going to talk about incentivizing, not bribing. Okay. But in essence, it's the same thing. So why I say you can incentivize, okay? as long as it's not putting pressure on your children. If you're incentivizing them, it is. So what happens at this age and stage, I'm sure some of you might have heard me speak about the fact that they don't really have an internal locus of control. So usually children are doing things to please you as parents, to please their friends, to fit in, to, I'm trying to think what else. So not generally doing it for themselves. So what happens is that from this age until about actually 15, 16, when they're wanting to start doing it for themselves, you need to try and help develop that locus of control, okay? So they are getting incentivized from outside until they actually realize, hang on, I want to do this for myself. So you'll find that it so often doesn't happen at this stage, so that's why we tend to modify or change behavior by incentivizing until they realize, actually, I can do it, I have the capability, I want to do it for myself. So yeah, we do incentivize at this stage. Right, so productive struggle. Who's seen this stuck in any homework books?
Hopefully all of them.
Wow, okay. Is this allowing the children to do everything on their own? Okay. So with all the CEA and cognitive education or enrichment, whatever it is, and this is what we talk about, is we talk about productive struggle. Okay, I don't know if any of you have seen this learning pit, but we have had constant conversations with our children about productive struggle. They've been exposed to this learning pit, and so basically what it is, it's about the discomfort that children feel when they're doing something that is beyond their current ability, but with the right amount of support. Okay, so there they are, and the top edge, and the child starts confident, but not really untested, goes into it, they dip into confusion, frustration, I don't get it, this is the learning pit. So these are conversations we have, this is kind of the conversations we are trying to have and with our children in the classroom. So we talk about the pit, we talk about the struggle, we talk about the confusion, the frustration, the learning pit, I don't get it. And then with support and not solving for them, so that, I'll get onto that now, the difference between support and solving is alongside you can teach them the skills, so teaching them a strategy and helping them to focus, and then on the top, they get out on the other side, eureka, and then they have mastered success. Okay, so it's the struggle, confusion, I don't know what to do, support, I'm going to put in the effort, and then I'm going to break through. Okay, so putting in the effort is not you putting in the effort. Putting in the effort is to upskilling your children to put in the effort to get to success. Okay, that's when you scaffold alongside. Like I say, you.
No, sorry, can I jump in anything? I think I guess from more of an academic perspective, as parents, we do want to jump in and help our children. So I had a little chap the other day who was struggling with 3-digit by 1-digit division. And all he wanted was for me to jump in and help him and show him how to do it. But the strategy I used was use what you know to help you with what you don't know. So I said to him, what's 45 divided by 5? And gave me the answer. And I said, what did you do? How did you work it out? And he said, well, I used multiplication to help me. So I said to him, okay, use what you know to help you with what you don't know. And I didn't jump in. And there was a 2-minute period of time, and he sat there and going through these feelings of struggle. And I wanted to jump in because I'm a teacher and I want to help. But I didn't. And the child found out how to do it by using what he knew to help him with what he didn't know. And I think as parents as well, when our children come home and they've got maths homework and you just want to jump in and solve it for them, but take a step back.
Yeah, that's exactly it is. And in taking this step back and them learning for themselves, they internalize and they grow so much more than if you had to do it for them.
So those connections were made in the child's brain because I didn't show the child how to do it.
Yeah, because they get that perseverance. And I think the strategic thinking that comes involved, the lateral thinking that comes involved, the perseverance, the mistake making, all of those kinds of skills are learned in those kind of moments of just working through a problem like that. Yeah. So they need to sit and wrestle through those problems and figure out a way, because that's in essence what's going to help them to grow. So, all right, if we look at here, support versus solving. Solving is growth blocking. Support is growth building. Okay, so if we are going to solve it, we're going to do it for them. If we're going to support them, we're going to do it with them, guiding through with them. Changing your narrative. You've got this. Okay, the first thing you need to do is to try. Okay, because I think kids often don't even stop trying. You know, you just need to encourage that. And so we as parents need to move from a solving mind shift. We need to have that practical mind shift change of solving to more supporting them. Okay, so supporting them means jumping in or fixing it, removing the challenge, taking it away, you know, giving the child the answer. It's taking over the responsibility of, taking over the task, often driven by an adult's discomfort or a sense of urgency. You're doing it to avoid tears. So let's just solve the problems. And often prevents the child from experiencing the natural consequences there. So if we have to look at shifting the narrative as a parent, instead of saying, how do I protect them from this? How do I protect them from this feeling of challenge that they're in? How do I protect them from that? To being able to, how can I support them with this task? Okay. So I don't want to protect them. I don't want to protect them and take it away. I want to support them. What can I do to support them? And obviously here, it's quite a broad, I mean, I'm giving a very much a broad overview. I wish we could sit down in smaller groups and unpack it and look at different ways of problems that you're dealing with and how you can support versus solving. And then, so supporting growth is walking alongside the child while they navigate the challenge. So it's often just breaking it down. And it often seems a lot more overwhelming. So providing tools of encouragement and a safe place of struggle. So it's centered on the child's learning and growth. So validating their emotions. I know it's hard. And exactly what Meg said just now. Sometimes you've just got to sit there and say, I don't have a solution. I know it's hard. But you've got to push through. Okay. And this gives child that sense of, hey, I'm actually capable. Even if the outcome isn't perfect, and that's where you need to be realistic and set realistic goals for your children, because everybody's outcome is different. And the outcome doesn't necessarily mean that they're going to make the 18. The outcome doesn't necessarily mean that they're going to get 100% for their maths test. The outcome means that they have learned, that they have grown, and that they are more resilient in themselves. Okay, so ways to try and support without solving. Okay, step back. Just like Lou said just now, observe before you intervene. It's so easy as parents to want to intervene before we've kind of looked at the situation, trying to understand the situation, and allow them the opportunity to figure it out for themselves. So they're encouraging language. This is where you need to say, I know you feel nervous about your oral. I know you can do it. You need to be able to tell your child that you are capable. Not give them an option, not say, oh shame, I think you must be tired. I don't think you can go to extra maths today. Or, oh shame, you must be exhausted after the school trip. Let me see if I can excuse you from the school trip tomorrow. From soccer match tomorrow. You're pretty much telling your kid, you're incapable. Actually, I don't believe you've got the strength to do that. And if that is the message that they're getting across, that you are trying to get across to them, you're pretty much giving them an out. Let your natural consequences teach. I know.
Yes, Ed, can I ask a question? I do think though there is this balance where I feel like we do overschedule our kids a bit, and so having letting them take time out sometimes is pretty critical to their mental health. So how do you balance the you have to persevere with they need to have a breather, especially for those of us that have kids in grade 4 and even 5 that are still kind of little and transitioning to the more responsibility.
And it's a hard line, and it's so kid specific, and it's so personality specific in terms of that. But I think you've got to realize too that actually if it's creating more anxiety than it's worth, then I wouldn't in a situation like that. If, you know, the reward benefit is there, but at the same time, you need to look at the situation contextually and see, is it because they're wanting to get out of it for X, Y, and Z, or is it because they're actually overloaded and overwhelmed? So I think, and that is paramount, and that is what you need to look for mostly, is but it's all about then the conversation around it. Okay, what led to that situation? What led them to get to that situation of, you know, not being able to manage it all? Right? Then you need to say, right, there's too much on your plate, we need to decide, we need to make a decision. And that's where you can help them decide, you can help them and scaffold them and decide, and with how they can make a decision. So give them a choice in the situation. Either you can do this or you can do this, and give them that choice in the situation so that they still feel empowered. It's a hard one though, and it's a hard one with the pressures of society.
Well, I do need to, there is space, there needs to be space to be having a break.
Yes.
So when they are
100%.
emotionally overloaded, I have him home for the day, but there's rules. So no screen time, you can read a book, I'll print some out for him, I'll print an Afrikaans poem for him, so it's still schoolwork, but on the couch. So he's got an emotional break, it's too much, so he's got his space, and I must say that the next day, he's back on.
That's brilliant. And you know the thing is that what I'm carrying there is that your child's come and said, I'm feeling this.
Yes.
You know what I'm saying is. And so that is that it's not an avoidance tactic. It's not anything like that. It is your child realizing and actually asking for support. So if you can check that anxiety model, it's going up, it hasn't reached that critical stage, and they're asking for support around that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It is sometimes.
And I think the thing is, if you're not making decisions for your children, and you're not telling them what to do, or telling them how to do it, or, you know, jumping in and saving things for them, your children will be empowered to recognize for themselves, hang on, I need to take a break.
Yeah.
I mean, if you can think of Clifton as a psychomotor school, and so overprotective parents, also I'm saying is, psychomotor, the rule is, there's 3 rules. Keep your body safe, or keep your body safe, don't
hurt somebody else.
Pardon me?
Don't hurt the next person and
keep the equipment safe, keep your body safe, and keep others safe in this whole entire situation. And when you go into the psychomotor room, you'll see that children will climb and, you know, kind of do things according to their ability. So children who are confident, who know their bodies or their body boundaries well, will climb to the top of the ladder, okay? But children who don't, and they're still exploring for themselves where their body boundaries are, will take it more cautiously and make sure that underneath them there's a mattress in case they fall. And as parents, we see a child climb a tree. A child who's agile is going to climb probably higher, but a child who's less agile is going to probably climb and then suss up the situation. When they feel more comfortable, maybe move on, maybe move on. But they learn for themselves. They learn their capabilities. They learn what their body can do, not compared to anybody else. And the thing is, if we standing there as parents saying, hang on, I'll catch you if you fall, they're going to carry on climbing, but actually go beyond their capability. So they're going to push their boundaries beyond what actually they feel comfortable for, because you're going to protect them. So in essence, a long way around, what you're trying to say is that the more we allow our children to take charge of themselves and know their boundaries and know the capability, the more likely they are going to be able to say, hang on, I've reached breaking point, I actually need time out. So I think that's great. Okay, so hold the space, don't fill it, okay? Don't jump in, like Meg said, don't jump in and try and fix it for them. Hold the space for them, fill it, validate emotions. I don't have an answer, it's okay. It's okay if you don't have a solution to every problem. Embrace unstructured play, okay? This is so important. Don't feel like your kids need to be going out to restaurants all the time, watching movies, having play dates. Let them be bored. All right. Validate their feelings, I've spoken about. And name the effort, not the outcome. Focus on the effort they put in and not necessarily the outcome. And I think that's a continuous thing. It's not a once-off conversation that's going to happen. It's a continuous conversation that's going to happen where you are going to coach them and praise them for the effort. Because, like I said, their outcomes are going to be different. But you're going to say, right, I saw you trying even if it was tricky. That's the courage, and that is what you're going to coach there.
Max, can I just ask a question? I'm looking at that validate feelings. Like, where's the line between indulging and validating feelings? Like, I agree with, like, I feel like I want to have my kids know that they can come to me with everything, but I'm also like, okay, this is enough. Like, don't moan. Like, there's, I don't know, I think sometimes it's, when we feel like we need to validate their feelings, it's like, yes, you have feelings, but the whole world isn't centered around those feelings. So how do you kind of be like, they count, but not really that much? Without actually saying that, you know, like without making them the epicenter. Because I feel like sometimes this generation feels like their feelings are so important. No, just shut up and get on with it. You know, but I also don't want to say, like, I don't know how to do that balance. I'm finding it very tricky to not be like, yes, I've got 3 hours, let's just talk about.
Luckily, I've got it so right.
So tell us how to do it.
It is. It's such a fine line. And what I tend to do there too is I tend to
put a timer on.
No. Daniel, you've got that 3 hours. No, I tend to rate the situations. You know, so if you look at a situation, and I'm talking particularly in terms of feelings of struggles. Feelings of struggles are not situations where, can you give me a specific example?
So it would be like, I'm so frustrated that this happened and this didn't go according to how I want. Okay, my darling, I'm sorry that happened for you. I've heard you, thank you for telling me. Then 4 hours later, I'm still frustrated about this. I'm like, okay, we've gone over this. I know that you're frustrated. You've explained it. I've understood every word that you said. Can we cut off now? But I don't want to say you're not allowed to feel frustration because that's a natural thing. But I don't need to hear about it for 4 hours. Like, how do you live it in the butt? Like, he's allowed to feel frustrated. That's okay. But it's not appropriate to tell everyone how frustrated you are.
As the husband.
And
Sometimes if you tell them about when you're frustrated, like if you're juggling lots of balls, sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. And just say that you're having a frustrating day too. And sometimes it teaches them empathy, that they can understand that you can't give them those 3 hours because you also having like a frustrating day. They learn empathy and they go, okay, I can't actually spend 3 hours talking to my mother about how frustrated I am, and maybe they get to understand a bit about how busy your day is, and that it's not that you're disregarding their feelings, it's just like that you're also juggling lots of balls, and they tend to understand. Sometimes it works.
I think the thing is too there is perspective. Like in a situation like that, he's telling you why he felt frustrated about a situation, but there's no perspective. So what I find too with this generation is they're very egocentric. So such a big part of the developmental stages that they are in right now is very egocentric. And so I find with a lot of children, if they don't realize, or if you don't help them to realize the other person's perspective, okay, so I know you feel frustrated in a situation, but let's see how X, Y, and Z must have felt, okay, and try and contextualize the situation. Maybe that would give, it sounds to me he'll keep harping on if there's no context or understanding in terms of the situation or how the outcome could have changed or what he could have done to change. So for me, it sounds to me like there needs to be more of that perspective and understanding, you know, that you also not the only one. And also, I'm having a frustrating day, but let us look at the situation and let's try and get the other person's perspective, you know.
Is it not also a bit of it, challenge of emotions versus behavior. So you're allowed to feel like that, and that's okay. But the behavior of going on at it for 4 hours and making it, sort of putting it on everybody else, that part is not acceptable. That you can have those feelings, you can do those things, but you can't now, in my house with 3 girls, you can't now keep crapping on your sister in every opportunity. You have your emotions, own your emotions, but don't put it on in the behavior side. That I've heard you're frustrated, that's fine, but what are you going to do? How are we going to carry that through the day? How are we going to carry it through?
And how are we going to manage it?
And also
the
then allow
idea
them
of
to
explaining
sit.
how others are feeling, because then it does teach that empathy to
That perspective. So that's exactly it. And also, like I say, rate it. You know what I'm saying? It's like, let us look at that. Okay, so that was a small part of your day. You are spending a whole lot of time on such a small part of your day. We've got perspective, we need to move on, kind of thing.
But let me just ask, because remember there's also there's 2 parents in the house. You find a mom who's now this, you sit here watching wrong answer. Now, how do they intervene, without you suddenly making the mom then look like they don't know?
You just who's not here today? Now you're asking that question. You gotta tell her.
So in a situation, it's hard in a situation, and because you also need to be a united front. So I think in a situation like that too, probably a reflection afterwards, as opposed to in a situation, you're not going to look like you're a united front. We'll just say, pause guys, let's chat about this later, you guys need to reconvene and then go back to the situation. Because the most important thing in a household is that you come across as a united front.
Excuse me?
As a united front.
Excuse me?
Sorry, a united front.
Okay.
Ununited.
They heard it.
Okay, but the thing is, we come from 2 different households. You were raised in 2 different ways. So you need to come and decide, this happened in your household, this happened, this is what we're going to do in our household. So you need to agree to disagree on a lot of things. Guys, we've run so over time, I'm just going to go through this last thing. Okay, so preparing the child, not the path, okay? We don't want to be those lawnmower mums, we don't want to be those helicopter mums or dads. But we, brave parents, need to step back just enough for our children to try, okay? We have to take that step back. We have to do it. And supporting our children through the comfort, okay? To trust the process, okay? Even when it's messy. I think this is where we need to trust our children more than we do, okay? Not with cell phones and things like that. I'm saying trust our children in terms of making decisions or showing up when they need to. Like I said, the more we step back as parents, the more they step up. And we need to give them that capability. I mean, if you even think about chores in a South African household compared to in the UK or Australia where there's no domestic help, our children certainly don't step up to what children do overseas. Model calm, courage and resilience. Okay, that calm is so important. Be careful. We cannot transfer our anxiety onto our children. Sometimes we need to fake it till we make it. Sometimes we need to bite our tongue or have that extra glass of wine to calm us down, jokes. But we need to make sure that we need to stay calm, okay? So when a parent is calm and grounded, a child feels so much more calm and grounded, okay? So it helps their nervous system to settle, okay? So you need to, in a situation that is anxiety-provoking, you need to get the message to the child to say, I'm safe, okay? I'm not scared. Are you safe? You're not scared. You don't need to be scared either. But if you are feeling just as anxious as a child in a situation, it is going to make the situation exacerbate that much more, okay? So, because we model our emotional regulation, as soon as we're dysregulated in a situation like that, our children will pick up on it and it'll be 10 times worse than that. Okay. that courage and resilience, like I spoke about it earlier, and I love the saying is, rescuing may bring you short-term relief. Trusting your child to struggle, try, and grow builds lifelong strength. Okay, so that's in essence the message that I want to say. It might feel easy to help your child right here, right now, but you're certainly not helping them become the adults that you want them to be one day. And I think we need to allow the children the opportunity to learn, and when we step back and see, we'll actually be able to see how much braver they actually are. All right, thank you.
Thank you so much for sharing your knowledge and expertise. I'm sure everyone here absolutely agrees with me, and for equipping us to help our children through these feelings of challenge, and for helping us to help our children thrive and grow.
Thank you.